I wanted to do this video, and I'm sorry. I always start talking right when it starts, and I think I sound a little jumbled. Sorry about that. But anyway, I wanted to do a video basically on this. And basically, in this video, I am showing you how I basically see different types of people of different amounts of African ancestry. See, the first ones I'm posting and showing you in the slide is mainly people who I would identify as black. They are over 50% black, therefore in my mind I consider that black. But I want to talk about what I consider mixed, what I consider fully black or mostly black, what I consider black with mixed ancestry, and what I specifically consider biracial, and what I consider mixed. I don't consider biracial the same as mixed. And I'll explain everything, basically. First off, I want to tell you guys where I come from, how I am, basically how I was raised. In my family, you'll see the whitest example that I have given is something like Fiona Apple. I would say um, my family, we have been married to or in relationships with and had children with people who had that type of phenotype. And in my family, everyone was considered black, even people who look like her, for example. Um, Sometimes some black people, anyway, look like that and have two black parents. They're not mixed. They just happen to look that way. I think it's like a drop back of genes or something like that. But the point is, in my family, the way it works anyway, it wouldn't matter if the person had two black parents, one great grandparent that was black, or whatever. In our family, the way it works is just like if there's black, then they're black, basically. And my mother actually thinks people who are Afrikaners are black. She doesn't think they're mixed. She doesn't think they're white. She thinks they're black. Um, Anybody who's like 5 to 10% black is considered black by them. That's just how my family is, and that's how I was taught. And so when I talk about racial background and people, and especially when it comes to my preference, I sometimes say I like black men, or I sometimes say someone is black, and I'm meaning in my head a specific type of black person, but I will just use the word black. When I talk about people being black anyway, it's not specifically to mean they aren't mixed. I will say black as a general word. If we are talking about fully black, I will make a differentiation, of being fully black versus being a black person of mixed ancestry or being a biracial black person. One thing I won't do, though, which is different than what my family does, basically, is call mixed people black. I don't call what I consider mixed people black. And what I consider mixed is someone who is very mixed. Like they aren't, like you could look at them and you wouldn't see someone who is, of African descent. You wouldn't specifically see someone who is of European descent. To me, mix is basically ambiguous. And as you can see, the people I'm posting now, these are people who are majority black. They're over 50% black by genetics. I think one I actually posted was actually half and half, 50-50, black and white. And I post that because in America, black Americans technically can be 50-50 black and white. So that's why I included that. Everyone else that I included was from here was 50% black, like 60 or 70% black. So, And I consider those people that I posted and am currently showing to be people who are black, in my opinion, but they have mixed ancestry. I fit into this category myself. I am black, but I have mixed ancestry. Sometimes people get confused with that because I would say that I am mixed or mixed ancestry, but I don't mean like mixed as an ambiguous or biracial. I mean like a black person with mixed ancestry. And you can see these people have a predominance of African in their phenotype. You could see by their facial features, their lips, their cheekbones, their nose, especially their nose, their eyes. You can see they're predominantly black, but you can also see they might have maybe one or two you know, African features. Besides the one that's mixed with North African descent. North African and Middle Eastern descent is a bit stronger, so when you are less than 50%, like you could be 10%, and you still would look a little mixed. It's just how it is. Now, as far as the biracials, who I've been posting now, these are biracial people, and you would say these people look very similar, in my opinion, to the people who are black, but they have mixed ancestry. There's an overlap here. But you can see that they are still biracial. And to me, I would still see that they have African ancestry. Therefore, I would say they are black biracials. But I would still acknowledge that they are biracial. This is why I don't understand why people act like they can't be a part of the divestment movement, when to me, in my view, they're still a part of the black race because they are black visibly and they are biracial. So technically, like, they have ancestry from another parent who gives them another cultural experience, but still, they're biracials basically. I put Danny Lay in there, but she's kind of like someone who looks biracial to me, but she is mixed. So she is ambiguous. And, this is generally what I'm talking about here. After Danny Lay is basically someone who is mixed race. To me is someone I can't really see as black or white. And the reason I say this is because if you look at our history as well, many people like this would not be, I don't think, seen as black or white. Now, if someone knew they had black in them, yes, they would be seen as black. But without anyone knowing that they have black in them, no one's going to say these people are black. They're not going to say they're white either. They're somewhere in between. This is where the whole thing with people who claimed they were Native American and things of that nature came about, I think, because they were not a part of the black or white race. They could easily basically blend themselves into something that isn't either race but something in between. To me, these people are specifically, the ambiguous mix category. And to me, I don't see them as white. And a lot of people try and get upset at me because I don't see these people as white and I see them as mixed. But honestly, if you think of it from my perspective, I'm coming a long way considering my family considered these people black. Um, but that's all I'm saying. I don't believe in, and people say like that I like am pushing like an idea of like the one drop rule, but it's not the one drop rule to me because a quarter black, for example, is not a drop. Half black is not a drop. 30% black is not a drop. A drop of blood that's black is 2%. And I would consider that person white, yes. But someone who's like 5% black, 10% black for sure, that's not a drop anymore. That's your great grandparent. Anyone can look like their grandparent. If your great grandparent is black and your grandparent is mixed, you could easily look like your mixed grandparent. So to me, I just think specifically in America, what white means is somebody who is fully white or looks like someone who's fully white. You can't look fully white if your great grandparent is another race. Now, on to the other part of what I wanted to talk about was this is specific to my channel because a lot of the time people say, oh, you talk out of two sides of your mouth because you are often saying that you like black men and then you say you like white men. And it's like, no. What I'm trying to explain when I say I like black men is this, basically. I'm saying I like men who are between the black, well, I mean, I like men who fit a certain phenotype that I like, okay? There was one time I was talking to a guy who was like a good amount of African ancestry. He showed me his DNA results, but he fit this phenotype. You know, he was like 80 something percent black, but he looked like this. Um, but generally, the men are generally like biracial, or they're like someone who is, for example, you know, black with mixed ancestry, things like that, you know. To me, I will say I like black men as a label, but I'm not saying that I like dark skinned black men. I don't like black men who look a certain way that have more different features. For example, it's not just a skin tone thing, it's also facial features as well that decide this kind of thing. Um, so you know, that's a major thing to me. Also, another thing is with mixed race people, like black and mixed race, like black and biracial people to me. Those people, to me, in those categories, I don't consider those people um, that different to be obviously in an interracial relationship with. I will, like I said, I acknowledge that they're different in looks, but I'm not going to say it in the same sense of somebody who I'm talking about who's mixed or someone of another race. To me, I don't perceive biracials to be different than me, biologically speaking, because usually they're 40% black, I'm 53% black. How am I supposed to see them as different than me biologically? It doesn't make any sense. And obviously, black person with mixed ancestry, like, is literally the same thing as me. Now, the other side of it that I wanted to talk about was this, though. I also have this perspective of people who are mixed. You know, in the next slide, I'm showing people black, I mean, well, not black men, but mixed race men, who I would consider, mixed. I wouldn't consider them black, I wouldn't consider them white, I wouldn't consider them Native American, I would consider them mixed. I guess you could say triracial, biracial. Not really biracial, though, in that sense of like close to half and half. I'm saying they're just mixed people. To me, I don't consider them the same even as someone outside of the race still. Because if I saw them as outside of the race, to me, it's a little different in this regard to me. Because it's like if someone who is mixed is between 5 and 25% black, and they have a kid with somebody who is a black person, like basically full black, like 90 to 100% black, then how are they another race when their children come out basically black children with some mixed ancestry because they're not under 50% black? So to me, like if you can have a child that's 55, 60% black, you're clearly not a mixed, like you're a mixed person, but you're not a person who is of another race to me in the sense of when it comes to relationships. I wouldn't consider that an interracial relationship from my perspective. And I know a lot of people find this weird, but that's just my perspective, and that might have to do a lot with how I was raised. Like I said, how I was raised was like if a person had 5% black in them and someone else is black, like, 90% black, they are still not in an interracial relationship. Because my family adheres to the one drop rule, I guess you could say, in some sense of blackness to them is just everything that has any blackness in it. I don't exactly see those people as black, but I do acknowledge that, well, they have that African ancestry in them. And if they have that African ancestry in them, how am I supposed to see you had a black child, but you're not a part of having African ancestry enough to not be in an interracial relationship? You see my point? To me, I'm like, if you can give somebody black kids, basically, then I don't see you as, when you are with a black person, to be in an interracial relationship. So that's just my perspective on that. So sometimes I say I like black men, but that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about um, men who look like, for example, Chris Brown or something. I'm not talking about men who look like, for example, I don't know, Trey Songz, you know. And like I'm saying, I'm trying to point out people, it's not about skin tone always. It's sometimes about features and, racial background as well, Um, so when I talk about, like, if I say that in my videos, because I know people have pointed this out, that because I've said that I like black men, I'm talking about that. No, I'm not talking about you, okay? I'm not talking about you ever, okay? What I'm talking about is basically what I was raised to see as black, basically. That is what I'm attracted to. And you have to remember, my mother had the same preference towards black men. And she always, like, when my mother was race loyal, because she was race loyal at one point in her life, she actually preferred men like this, basically. And, like, she would consider them black. So that's why I come from that kind of background where I kind of like see basically men like that and women like that as, black basically, but I do understand that they have mixed ancestry or they're biracial. And, if you're biracial, for example, you have a different cultural experience, and things of that nature. But when I think of looking at you, I'm going to look and I'm going to see African ancestry, therefore I'm going to see that. When I look at a mixed person to me, someone who is between 5 and 25% black, I don't see a black person in my eyes. I don't like actually visibly see someone who is black in my mind. I actually see someone who isn't either. They're not white, they're not black. Even like I said, the lightest example I gave, like a Fiona Apple. When I look at her, I don't see a white woman. I don't see a black woman. I just see a woman with features of both sides, but I wouldn't per se say I see either race specifically. So that's basically how I see it. And also, it's not just my family, because it's also a matter of my my environment. You, for example, I've talked to white people, and I've talked to white people, for example, about like women like Fiona Apple, for example. And many of the time they'd be like, yeah, I always thought, why does her features look that way? I always thought she had some kind of African ancestry in her. They would associate someone's phenotype like that with being of African descent. To them, it's even different. Because, I mean, like, I've seen some of them, how they do it. They automatically put them in the black category. I wouldn't say, many of the time when I see people like what I said, that were like between 5 and 25% black, I wouldn't say that those people look black. I don't think they look white either, though. They just look like people, that are in between. Um, Also, another thing is, people also don't pay attention to many of the different people who are, even white, for example. Sometimes among white people may see someone who is white with African ancestry, even if it's a very small, tiny bit, as not really white. For example, you can use the example of a person I consider white who has African ancestry would be like Ty Burrell, what's her name? Jessica Biel, who else? Oh, that's the guy I'm trying to talk about. Steve Tyler. You know, you would consider those people white, but among white Americans, I don't know what's going on there because in two of those cases, maybe even three, you can hear that there are different reasons why white Americans sometimes will still act a little different towards even these type of people, and they have very low amounts of African ancestry and look like white people. Specifically, for example, Steve Tyler, he was called the N-word. He was literally attacked for his Afrocentric lip structure and called the N-word on a regular, beat up and basically bullied while he was a kid, um, because of his, I guess, slightly different ethnic look than a white American. You can also see this in other cases, like in Jessica Biel's situation. You can see that in her family, they would always claim they had Native American. A lot of families who claim they have Native American, they do it for a reason when they have black in their family, because they do it because they feel because basically it's to make an excuse as to why they look different from other white people. Now, you would think, why do they have to make this assertion? Because you would think they don't look any different from white people. But apparently, I guess to white people, they need an explanation, which I don't know, that's just a little weird. I don't see the difference, you know? Like, there's no difference with her phenotype and a white person's. Another example would be Ty Burrell. If you look at his family and their census, like in the census, I think it was his grandparent or great grandparent, which would mean that they were like 7% or like, I think 14% black. They still were labeled as black in the census because, like I said, between white people and people who are mixed, usually white people can tell the difference between mixed people and white people. Among black people, sometimes we just get caught up in the idea that just because we're all black, you know, and a lot different from the people who are, you know, in between 5 and 25% black, that those people are white. But in reality, those people aren't treated like white people by white people. They just aren't. They're treated like white people by people who aren't white. If someone is mixed like them and they might identify as white because they come from a different country, they might see those people as white, you know. But among people who align with being 100% white and are in a community around people who are 100% white, they can usually tell the difference. And in our society, we have mostly people who are 100% white in our society. So that's why, to me, I see it differently when it comes to, you know, 25% black as opposed to 25% white. Because we live in a society where the black Americans are mixed and the white Americans are white. They're not mixed. So that's why the identity of blackness is kind of mixed, but the identity of whiteness is full white, basically. That's just to do with the specific ethnic groups in America that are white. They're specifically just white. They're not mixed with black usually. with that said, I'm not saying somebody who's 3%, 2%, 1% black obviously are black or mixed people. They're white people, obviously. But I'm just pointing out that among white people, they still may even experience racism, even when it's a white person with just a slight amount of African ancestry. So, someone who is obviously black enough to have a great great grandparent or great grandparent who is black, a grandparent who's mixed, or a great grandparent who is mixed, to me, I'm like, at that point, you're still within that range. You still will phenotypically be seen differently than a person who is actually white. If you look at their faces one on one. Now, if someone's not really looking at you and they don't really pay attention to you that much, maybe they wouldn't really notice the difference at lower amounts, like 5% for that matter. But I'm just saying, as far as um, how I see race and ethnicity is specifically to me, including the way society sees it as a whole. And the majority of society is white, and a good percentage of the black community doesn't see it any differently either. Like I said, I come from one of those black families. So, like in our country, basically, that's how we see it, and that's how it's done. Therefore, that's how I see it, you know. But I'm not saying that I see, mixed people as black. I don't. I just don't see them as white either, even if they are a majority white. And I don't see people who are biracial as only black. I see them as they have white in them, obviously, and they have a white parent or they have a Hispanic parent, that's why they're biracial. But then again, they are also a biracial black person because they're mixed with black, and so therefore I see the black in them. When I look at them, I will see a black person. Now, that doesn't mean that they are a black person. What I see isn't specifically to do with what is, So obviously, what is that they have a parent of another race. Obviously, biologically, though, that's why I don't see it as an interracial relationship to be with one, because, I mean, like, there's hardly any difference here. And, I mean, like I said, with the mixed people who are 5 to 25% black, if you can have a black child, I just don't see how it's an interracial relationship. Black children don't come from interracial relationships. They come from a person with African ancestry and another person with African ancestry. So that's all I have to say on that. I know I've spoken a lot about it, and I, yeah, I think I've been thorough enough. So then, when I say that I am attracted to a black man, I am not talking about someone 100% black, 90% black, probably not even anyone 80% black. I remember, like I said, one time, one guy, he looked more like he was like 50% black, in my opinion. He was very light skinned, green eyes, and really wavy hair. So I mean, like, if you look a certain way, I'm gonna be attracted to that. But just generally, from my experience, they usually aren't over 80% black. They're usually more like around 50, 60, 40, 30, as far as the men that I would identify as black. Now, the men that I've dated, like I said, were usually 10, 25%, 10 to 20% black, if that amount. Usually, Hispanic, so you don't actually know how much their percentage is, like Colombian or Puerto Rican for that matter. But yeah, mix, maybe. But yeah, that's all I really have to say on that. Thanks for watching, and bye.